Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to remove the shock hardware off of a shock when you do not have the tools that are specifically designed to remove the shock hardware. So just to show you, although I'm not going to use these in this video, here is a tool which is used to remove shock hardware, and this is another tool that is also used to remove shock hardware. And I'm not going to be showing how to use those in this video, but instead I'm going to show basically using sockets to remove the shock hardware. Now, the shock hardware, I have two different shocks that I'm going to show. One of them is this Fox shock, which has metal bushings, and I'm going to remove this shock hardware here. And on this DVO Topaz, I'm going to remove the shock hardware here, right here. The Fox has metal bushings, and when you're removing shock hardware, there would be basically two different types of hardware. One will be metal bushings, and the other will be IGUS poly bushings. But the metal bushings that are in this shock, just to show you, here's a set of the hardware that has been removed. And the way this hardware is set up, it has spacers. These black things are spacers that that are around this center sleeve, and then the center sleeve goes into a metal bushing, and the metal bushing is right inside the end of the shock right here. On the IGUS, it's very similar, except instead of the metal bushing, there's a poly bushing. And the pieces to this, it also has the spacers. And just to show you, this is sitting in the shock like this. So there are these spacers, black spacers, that come off, okay? And on the poly bushings, it also has these O-rings that are in there. I take the O-rings will come right out. And then this silver thing is the center sleeve, and then these white things are the poly bushings. And that's in this shock, and I'll show how to remove those as well. Now, when I'm doing this, I typically tape the end of the shock stanchion, just because whether you're doing it with the actual tools designed to do this or sort of in a makeshift, it's easy to slip and scratch the stanchion. So just to protect the stanchion a little bit, I put tape over the end. I've done it on both shocks. Now, sometimes, and one other thing on the shock hardware. The example I'm showing is an 8mm bolt will go into this center sleeve and then attach onto the bike. This one is also an 8mm, but sometimes they're 10mm, and I'm not going to show an example of removing a 10mm center sleeve, but here's a 10mm center sleeve, so just be aware of that. Now, sometimes what I'm going to do first is remove the metal bushing. That is the more difficult of the two, and sometimes you can get lucky and you can just push them out with your finger. Now, I can't on this one. So anyway, I'm going to have to go through the technique. So now what I do is I get sockets, and what you're trying to do is get sockets that measure up. So that socket right there is a little bit smaller than the center sleeve that I'm getting ready to remove. And then I will take this and I will put a dowel, a little piece of wood. I have taken it and put it in a sharpener and made the end just a little bit tapered, and I'll stick that into my socket like this, and then I'll put that so that dowel will hold the socket so that it's not going to move around, and it'll become obvious here in just a second how easily it can move around. Then you have another socket, and this socket would be big enough so that the center sleeve can go right in there. And you'll put it right here. You'll take a hammer and you'll beat basically beat the center sleeve out of that shock. So there you go. That came right out. And there it is removed. There's the center sleeve removed. Here are the bushings that were on that center sleeve here. And what's in there is the metal bushing. Now to remove the metal bushing, this is a little bit harder to do. In this, for the metal bushing, what I have here is a 10 millimeter short socket. And for this, once again, I want to make sure that it stays lined up. So I'll put a dowel, a wooden dowel in there like that. We'll put this on here. Now, on these, it's hard to beat them out. You can beat them out, but on this, I'm going to actually go in and use a vise to press these things out here, because like I said, this can be pretty hard to do for me anyway. You got to do a little bit. Ah, shucks. You got to get this thing right in there. Put that in there, and now you've got to twist. Make sure I got that over there. There you go. Once you get it in the vise, you're just going to tighten it up, and what it should do is press out that metal bushing in there. There you go. So got it pressed out, and there is the shock is been free of the hardware, the metal bushing's out, and that's how you do it. Now, one thing, when you're doing this, the area around this, it's very difficult to do it without the proper tools, without scarring this. Now, you really won't be able to see it when you put the spacer back on. Most of that will be covered, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, just be aware of that. Now, this is much easier to do, going back and just putting back my sockets so that I don't lose them. Once again, we're going to put the dowel into the socket, stick it in there. I'm going to put this on and tap it out. And by the way, the ISG or poly bushings, many times you can just press those out with your hand. Once you get it started, you can press it on out. And there are the spacers and the O-rings, and here is the center sleeve with the O-ring and the bushing. Now all that's left are is that you just need to pop out the poly bushings. And the way I do it is I take a razor blade, stick it up under that poly bushing. And by the way, as you can tell, it's pretty easy to break the razor blade, but you just gently wobble it around in there. And what you want to do is just create a little space on both of them. Then once you get a little space in there, you're going to stick a screwdriver in there, and you can just work it out. There's that one out. Maybe just a little bit. I didn't quite get that one in there. Just wobble that out just a little bit. Yep, I think I got a little space there. Yep, got the screwdriver in there. And pop that bushing out there, that other IGUS bushing. And there is the stanchion on the shock, and it's been freed of all the hardware. So that's how you take apart or take the shock hardware out of a metal bushing shock and out of an ISG poly bushing shock. I hope this was helpful. Anyway, I'll see you guys at the top.